Hey guys, it's Connor, and today we're doing something a little bit different. We're starting a new series called Cinematography Breakdown, where I just walk you through the lighting, the camera work, all the little details of my own music videos to try and give you a little bit of insight on what you can do on a budget and what you can accomplish with your own videos. I am hardly a professional at this, but I think it's really useful to see people who aren't professionals and see what they do. Because when I was starting out in my career, there was a lot of things that I could find online showing how to make these big budget music videos, but they didn't help me at all because I don't have that budget. I don't have crazy locations, I can't rent cars, I can't hire actors. So I think this is a really good way of seeing what you can accomplish with very little resources. Today we're going to talk about the video I did for a band called Hallux. These are friends of mine, I went to school with a couple of them, really good dudes, and they wanted to shoot their first music video for their new project. In this case, they already had a rough idea of what they wanted. They just wanted a straightforward performance video, no B-roll, no actors, nothing like that. They wanted it in black and white, and they wanted it to be very fast-paced, really dark and moody, and to try and keep the attention off their faces so that you can kind of focus on the intensity of the music. The title sequence is just short and sweet because everything else with the video is really basic, really raw, just straightforward and to the point, and I think that's really indicative of the kind of music that they do. So any embellishments that I would usually add, like long title sequences or whatever, I just kind of threw out the window because it needs to reflect and fit the musical style and the visual style that we've agreed on for the video. So it's just displaying the band logo and then the name and then right into it right away. Right off the bat, one of the big distinctive things you're going to see here is that it's all in black and white. And lighting black and white is difficult because, as I've said before in one of my other videos, you get visual contrast from things like the amount of light versus the amount of dark and from color. And to make an image that's really deep and really dynamic, if you don't have any color, that's one of your biggest tools of accomplishing that. So you have to rely completely on your lighting techniques in black and white. It's kind of a long way of saying that you need to control how much contrast there is in any given shot. If there's too much black and not enough light, then it's just going to look flat. But you're going to have the same thing if you light it too much and there's just too much white and not enough shadow anywhere. It's a tricky thing to balance and accomplish well, but I think we did a pretty decent job here, and it's something that you can also enhance in the color grade later on. Believe it or not, all I used for lighting on this is just a $100 lighting kit that I actually put together myself way back when I was first starting out, because I didn't have a lot of money for lighting and it gets ridiculously expensive. If you want to see the exact kit that I used for this, I actually put together a video on my $100 lighting kit when I was first starting out, so you can check that out if you want to pick it up yourself. In order to keep everybody's faces obscured and keep the overall look very dark, but still outline enough movement, I decided to put one light behind each band member. So that way you can kind of see in certain shots, like if you see the guitar player, you can see the outline of his hair, the outline of his body, and all this kind of stuff, but his face is still obscured. It makes it so that we have a nice balance between all that dark, moody stuff without not being able to see what's actually going on. What's interesting about these lights too is because all they have is a clamp for a mount, I actually just clamped them onto the structures above them. I didn't need to tape anything or anything like that, which is great because I can get these lights into really small, awkward places that I couldn't get large lights. If I wanted to place a large, RE light or a large spotlight of some kind in those same places, I wouldn't be able to fit them, and then I'd also have to deal with these giant light stands in the background. So this was absolutely perfect for what we wanted. There's a little bit of just general ambient light, and that's because the wall behind the drummer, as you can see, is white. So we tried to block that off as much as we could because I didn't want too much spill coming into the entire scene. But I blocked enough so that it just kind of adds a nice little bit of ambient light bouncing off that wall, but it's not brightening things up too much. That was especially important to control because we've already got so much light reflecting back up at the drummer because he's got all these cymbals, he's got these white drum skins and all that kind of stuff. So we still needed to control the bounce off the back wall to compensate for that somewhat. As far as the camera work is concerned, it's really straightforward. I've only done 3 types of shots here, and the main one is just, like I said, it's a shoulder rig with a 50mm lens. I'm using the Contact Zeiss 50mm 1.4, and it's at 1.4 for all of this, so that you've got a really narrow depth of field. And that way I can kind of play with things being a little bit out of focus. I think when things are like really high intensity, they're supposed to be kind of raw. I really don't mind if things aren't perfectly in focus. I kind of like to take, you know, a little bit of a lean forward, a little bit of a lean back as I'm capturing it, so that I get a little bit of that rough, imperfect image, and I think it works really well here. For all the 360 circular glide cam stuff, I'm actually using the Contax Zeiss 28mm, and I've also got that wide open, and I'm just doing my best to keep focus by maintaining the same distance the entire time, because obviously they're about, you know, 6-7 feet apart from each other, and if I set my aperture so that they're all in focus, I'm not going to get enough light in the camera. So I just put it wide open and just made sure that as I'm going around, if I'm 5 feet away from the drummer and he's in focus, then by the time I get to the guitar player, I want to make sure that I'm also 5 feet away from him. So whoever is in the front of the frame at the time is always going to be in focus, and the rest of them are going to be out of focus, which adds a little bit of depth that I really like. The only other shot I have is just a specialty shot that only comes up once or twice in the video, and it's just the Sigma 18-35 right up close on the microphone, and it's a stationary shot. And I just like that because it's a little intense, it's a little personal and kind of in your face, and I think it fits the mood of the song. I find that a video gets so much more interesting if you have specific shots that are just one-offs or things that only come once or twice in the song. I think that you can get away with putting 5 or 6 of those types of shots in a video, and it just instantly gets like 20-30% better because you're not as bored throughout the whole thing. I think the big rule of thumb when you're shooting on a shoestring budget is just use what you have available to you, because locations tend to be the most expensive thing on a video shoot. I usually end up spending at least $400 on a location, but typically you're looking at like 800 to 1,000 just for a medium-sized place to shoot. So if you can find a location that you already have access to, or can at least get access to for relatively cheap, then you're much better off for the rest of the shoot, and you can use the money that's left over for upping the production value with things like props or better lights and things like that. Use what's available to you and see how you can make the most of whatever's free, cheap, or whatever you already have lying around. The color grade on this one was pretty straightforward. All I had to do was convert it to black and white, but I still took my time in making sure I had the amount of detail I wanted. I wanted to make sure that I preserved all the dark detail, because that's where things mostly sat, was in that darker range. But I wanted to keep the highlights a little bit lower as well. I wanted it to feel like an old black and white monster movie from the 40s. I didn't want it to be too high contrast and too modern feeling, so I subdued the highlights just a little bit just to kind of give it that effect. That's all there is to this video. It's a really straightforward one, but that's why I thought it would be good to start with in this series, so you can see what you can do with just a single location, a band, and a few really cheap lights. There's no actors, there's no CGI, nothing like that. It's super straightforward, and I think this is something that anybody can do, but I think people have trouble figuring out how they can do it really well and make something very simple look really professional. This is just the first video in this series, and we're going to get into a lot more detailed and complex and higher budget music videos later on. But hopefully this has helped you learn something that you can apply to your own work and take it up to that next level. If you have any questions about this video or you want to see more like it, just let me know and I'll be happy to do them. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.